session is Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. And we'll start with the invocation by Mr. Richard Brewery Jr. Plus the pledge of allegiance.
Loving and gracious God, we praise and thank you for another day on this earth. Bless all of our endeavors, especially today's meeting, as we seek to do your will. Give us your grace so that we may effectively do our part as public servants and lead this district with confidence and unity. May your love surround us, your peace calm us, your shield protect us, and your wisdom guide us forever and always. We ask all of this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, amen. And I'd also like to ask that we observe a moment of silence for the teachers and children who died in Uvalde, Texas last week, and their families. Thank you.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call for the
Here.
Ms. Vale?
Hill. Here.
Ms. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Fatima?
Here.
Mr. Brewery?
Here.
Dr. Dia?
Here.
Ms. Bourgeois?
Here.
Mr. Dufresne? Mr. Schwest?
Here.
Mr. Plazo?
Here.
Mr. Duplantis?
Here.
Mr. LaFont?
Here.
Mr. Archer?
Here.
Mr. Bernal?
Here.
Mr. Adams? Therefore.
Sir. All right, let's look at the second part of the agenda, the awards and recognition. I'll turn this over this time to Mr. Dean Giddens.
Good evening. Welcome to our recognition, our monthly recognition, our awards night. And tonight is a real special night because we have some real special students receiving awards tonight. I'm going to let the superintendent tell you what that award is. Superintendent Martin.
So every year the graduating classes of South Lafourche, Central Lafourche, Thibodeau High, and Val, we recognize valedictorians, and valedictorians, according to the Lafourche Parish School District, are folks that had all A's in every subject and completed the college-bound material or courses. And so all of those folks that qualify for that are recognized as a valedictorian. And I had a parent call me and say, well, you know, as an elementary kid, the kids that got all A's on every report card, there was an award for that. And do we have it at the high school? I said, well, no, we don't, I don't think that we do. And then the question expanded to, do we do it from kinder through 12th? And I'm like, well, gosh, how could a kid even do that? And then the answer was, well, mine did. So then we kind of started talking as an academic group and said, well, is that even a thing that we can track? Yeah, absolutely we can track that. Well, how many kids did this? And the answer I got was it was 20. So 20 kids, that seems like a high number of kids that never made a B on a report card. And then the computer analyst that ran the report said, no, that's not the report I ran. The report I ran said finished every course with an A. I said, no, go back and run it again. I'm looking for kids that never made a B on any report card grades kinder through 12th. That's how we got to tonight's recipients of these awards. These kids have navigated their entire educational experience, K through 12, and never had a B on a report card. So a huge round of applause. For the students whose names Mr. Delcom is about to read.
Okay, so the first student is from Central Lafourche High School, Ms. Amy Chazot.
Hold on, we can get one. We have time. Thank you. Yes, sir.
The second student from Central Lafourche High School is Jenna Pinell. Okay. From South Lafourche High School, Ms. Isabella Lassane. From South Lafourche High School, Mr. Brody Pete. From South Lafourche. Okay, and finally, Ms. Sagan Roos of South Lafourche High School.
All right. So, to the very small group of students that achieved this extraordinary achievement, congratulations, and I hope that your first grades at university level don't knock this out out of the possibility. But if it does, don't give up. It gets easier as you navigate college, I assure you. The freshman year is usually a doozy, but you're probably going to do just fine because you definitely had grades that did not reflect the mine. So, have a great night. You're welcome to stay, everyone, but kids, congratulations. Great work. Good job. Group photo. Group photo. They're not adults yet. Maybe by July.
Your kids are all alive. It's okay.
You graduate, yeah, I'm good. Henry, they following your footsteps? Oh, no.
No problem, no problem. This is fun.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Congratulations, guys.
And look, Dean's going to upload these to Facebook, so you'll have some really good pictures you can pull down for yourself.
Very remarkable civil league. All right, moving on, letter number 3, approval of board consent agendas. I'll read both of them and then we'll vote on them together. A, approval of board consent agenda items. B, minutes of regular board meetings held May 4th, 2022. So, second, any discussion? Public. That said, let us vote, please. Okay, let's go on to the number 4, approval of land and facilities management committee recommendations as per meeting held Tuesday, May 17, 2022. Chairperson, Mr. Barry Blaisdell.
Thank you, Mr. President. A, to accept the change order to add 7 additional days to the contract due to inclement weather for the month of April 2022 for the new Thibodeau Middle School project. So moved. Do we have a second?
Suez. Discussion. Board. Discussion, public, not, let's vote please. And it's unanimous.
B, to consider a change order to purchase new kitchen equipment for the new Thibodeau Middle School. So moved.
We have a second. Mrs. Flans, board discussion, public discussion. Let's vote please. Unanimous. Letter C.
To accept a change order in the amount of $43,797 to add approved automatic sprinkler systems to the public lobby areas at both 6th Ward Middle School and the Rose Cutoff Middle School, as required by the Louisiana State Fire Marshal Security Upgrades Phase 6 project. So moved.
Second. Bourgeois. Discussion. Board. Public. Please vote. Unanimous. Letter D.
D, to authorize a lease agreement renewal between Lafourche Parish School Board and VOW Virtual Academy Lafourche for the lease of a portion of the Top South campus. So moved.
Second. Second. Council Guillaume, any discussion? Public, none from the board, let's vote please. Unanimous. Okay. Letter E.
E, to authorize declaring a section of property located next to Bayou Upper Elementary as surplus, and to consider entering into an intergovernmental agreement with the Bayou Fire Department for the use of this property for a training facility. So moved.
We have a second. Mr. Truax, any discussion? Public, board, please vote. Unanimous. Mr. Blazon.
Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to see if we can add in agenda item F, to authorize the superintendent to accept the low bids once received for the athletic fields and asbestos abatement projects.
All right, first off, we need a vote to allow an agenda item to be placed. This item is placed on the agenda. It has to be unanimous vote. Mr. Guillaume.
So I'll move that we add this agenda item to the agenda and vote accordingly.
Second.
Let's have a hand vote. Yes.
Discussion.
Okay. Any discussion for the public, any discussion for the board? Yes.
I'd like Mr. Martin to explain, as he explained to the board, to explain to the public why we're doing it.
Once we vote to get the item on the agenda, then at that point, it will be
Okay.
officially added to the agenda. He can read the item again, then we'll go through the whole process
No
again.
problem.
Mr. Okay. All right, with that said, we have voted unanimously. We have not. Let's hand vote, please. All right. The item is officially added to the agenda. Now we're going to proceed as we do to all agenda items. Mr. Plaisance, will you read that particular agenda?
F, to authorize the superintendent to accept the low bids once received for the athletic fields and asbestos abatement project. So moved.
Second, Mr. Boudry, discussion.
Members of the board, we've got a time-sensitive project that we're going to be opening on June 13th for one of our athletic fields, and we have other athletic field repairs that we're attempting to make before the start of football season and baseball season. By authorizing me to accept the low bid, we're not going to do anything different than we would have done, but we will be allowing the process to begin of accepting those low bids and that work to be done in such a way that we can get the field repaired before football season. By adopting this, you can potentially begin the construction phase of the South Lafourche football field, an example, a full month ahead of coming back to the board. Once the work is begun and we have the low bid accepted, of course, I'll bring that report back to this board to let you know what contractor was selected and what the low bid was, if we accept the low bid that comes out based on our consultants with also. The same thing is true for asbestos removal, which is part of the board members' request. We have a project at a specific school where the tiles are beginning to pop up rapidly, and we don't want to wait a full month to begin that work because school's going to be beginning soon again in August. So these two small projects could be approved by my office, and I'll report back to the board according to the procurement laws that were followed as to what contractor was selected and what the low bid was.
Any other discussion from the board concerning this agenda? Mr. Plaisance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I brought this to the superintendent a couple of weeks ago. It kind of got skipped through. The reason why this is so critical is it's very time sensitive because that's not when check football season starts in August. And summer months, we typically lose a lot of days and inclement weather. And of course, all of these projects can be outside. Same thing with the baseball field. I think they had a deadline of January to be finished. We kind of stopped and said, well, that's not enough time. They still have to plant the fields. They still have to get the field ready. There's a number of things. But it just all kind of came together, and here it is. So the main thing is to save time. We're not going to meet again until July. So we're basically going to save 2 or 3 weeks of. We have the bid, we accepted it, except we can't get started. So it's going to allow them to move forward, move quick, get it done. Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Plaisance. Any other comments from board members? Any comments from the public concerning this particular agenda? If not, let's vote. Handle, I'm sorry. Handle, yes. Unanimous, thank you. Okay, let's move on to 5, approval of Finance Committee recommendations as per meeting held Wednesday, May 18, 2022. Ms. Booth.
Item A, to authorize advertisements for bids in compliance with current bid laws for Hurricane Ida contents replacement items. So moved.
Any discussion on this item by the board? Public? Not, let's vote.
Item B, to authorize advertisements for bids for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as the need arises in compliance with current bid laws for IT equipment and supplies, janitorial equipment and supplies, maintenance equipment and supplies. So moved.
Do we have a second? Mr. Down. Discussion by the board. Discussion by the public. Not, let's vote, please.
Item C, to accept the renewal of software license support services for J Campus student data application from Ed Gear in the amount of $188,576.90 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. So moved.
Second, Mr. Schwartz. Any board discussion concerning this item? Public discussion? Not, let's go for it. Unanimous? Okay.
Item D, to accept the renewal of software licenses and hardware and software support services for Badge Pass identity and visitor management systems in the amount of $35,451.99 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. So moved.
Second, Mr. Paul, discussion by the board, discussion by the public, let's vote please. Unanimous? Okay.
Item E, to accept the renewal of software licenses for Destiny Library Manager and Resource Manager applications from Follett in the amount of $43,323.72 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. So moved.
We have a second, move on, discussion, board, public, let's vote. Okay.
Item F, to accept the renewal of web content filtering software and hardware and software support services from Content Keeper in the amount of $119,169.75 for a period of 3 years. So moved.
Do we have a second? Mr. West, discussion by the board. We do have a blue card on this particular item by Ms. Jamie Marlborough. She wishes to speak. Is Ms. Marlborough there? Come on up, Ms. Marlborough. I'll read this for you so it will be understood as for the record. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per individual for board meetings and 10 minutes per individual for committee meetings. Comment cards must be submitted to the official recorder prior to any action being taken on the agenda or before the next agenda item is introduced for non-action actions. Please note all meetings are streamed via Facebook. The floor is yours.
We know the internet's the internet, and I know that if anybody's schooled their kids in the last 2 years, Content Keeper even sometimes keeps the kids out. I have to call them to Thursday back in. My concern is that if it's a filtering mechanism, there's loopholes. And you have kids playing games, because I've gotten phone calls, my kid's playing a game that he shouldn't be playing, or I'm getting a phone call, he's watching someone play a game on YouTube. And if we're gonna spend $100,000, I'm hoping those loopholes can be filled. So I just hope y'all take that into consideration when y'all are voting, because it's one less phone call I have to get and one less phone call a teacher will have to make, and the kids aren't playing something else instead of focusing on what they should be doing. So,
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, any discussion by the board on this particular item?
Has it been reported at the schools as having difficulties?
Turn that over to the superintendent.
So the Content Keeper addresses some of those concerns, but there's another software program that you're approving tonight that actually is a better apparatus for controlling what children are doing on that computer. The web filtering prevents the content from being put in front of the child, but the previously approved or other item, Mr. Sherman shaking his head is what's going to allow the educator to have a better understanding of what the kids do on their computers. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, superintendent. Any other comments from the board concerning this? Dr. Gale.
So both items are needed, or one wouldn't function to do the other function, so both of them function independently?
Can we recognize Mr. Chauvin?
Absolutely, I think
Mr.
that.
Chauvin, could you address that, please? Dr. Gee has concerns.
Sure. Trying to do this in as non-technical terms.
Thank you.
Remember that. So if I can speak to this particular product, this is a web content filter. And the way that this system works is it scans the web pages for different words, contents, things like that, and it categorizes websites into categories. Our policies are based on categories. So, for instance, a sports website is going to be categorized as sports. Games are going to be categorized as games. What we have figured out is that there are loopholes, and then the reason why, and I'll explain this to the best of my ability, we discovered earlier on in the beginning of this school year, believe it or not, it was a Google site, so it was fill-in-the-blank.google.com/games. So we can't block google.com because that's the way our classes are being facilitated. And we can't, so the system tries its best to do what it can, but people have discovered ways around filtering systems like this. So there are limitations for that reason. It basically does its best, it's a computer algorithm that does its best to scan the website and pick up on the content that's there, but there are ways around it. So when we get to the next slide, I can speak further on that. Does anybody have further questions on
Any
this?
other questions for Mr. Chauvin? All right, thank you for that. Let's go on to the next item. Be ready, Mr. Chauvin.
We gotta vote.
Let us vote on this item. Do we have any more discussion from the board or from the public on this particular item? Ms. Ford. All right, let's go on to the next item.
Item G, to accept the purchase of Palo Alto Cortex XDR endpoint protection licenses in the amount of $205,260 for a period of 3 years. So moved.
Can I have a second? Dr. Guion, discussion, Mr. Chauvin, could you possibly talk a little bit about this?
To put this one simply, this is the next generation antivirus protection for our devices. This is the latest and greatest of what's out there.
Any board members? Any public comments? All right, not this board. All right.
Item H, to accept the purchase of Dell EMC Cyber Recovery System, including all necessary hardware and software components in the amount of $216,646, including support for a period of 3 years. So moved.
Second, please. Ms. Bourgeois, any comments from the board? Comments from the board? Please vote. You have a lot on today, Ms. Bourgeois.
Telling you.
Getting tongue tied over there. All right.
Item I, to accept awarding the highest scored proposal for classroom management software. So moved.
Got a second. Mr. Shuez, board discussion. Ms. Petit.
I just want to, first I want to thank Mr. Chauvin for, he did a real good job of explaining all this at the finance committee meeting. It's just mind-boggling for us that don't know technology a lot, but I do appreciate you being on top of all of this stuff, Mr. Chauvin. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chauvin, seeing as how you did such a good job, could you do it one more time? ensure we all and the public understand exactly what this is about.
So this particular system was brought to my attention by one of our teachers, actually. So this technology is still new. This is only year 2 that we're one-to-one with every student having a Chromebook. And there was a need for the teachers to have more control over the devices in the classroom. It's probably not surprising to you that the students are very quick to minimize and expand tabs, so they're able to do things on the side and the teacher turns their head. This particular software will give the teacher full control over the devices in their particular classroom during their class period. Will allow them to restrict what websites they can visit. They can actually share content, so they can share what's on their screen to all the devices in their classroom, and basically allow them to control exactly what their students are accessing.
Very good. Any questions for Mrs. Schuler? Any other comments by the board? Ms. Booth?
This is the one that will allow the teacher to see what students are doing.
Yeah.
It kind of goes hand in hand with the first thing you spoke about.
Yes, ma'am, I think that's a very good thing.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Do these 3 that you just mentioned, are they connected to each other?
So they are not. They're all separate.
Independent, so they're not watching each other? Like you have one that's a software to, like for Google, to watch Google to see what's happening in the Google, but that's not connected to these 2 right here, these last 2.
Yes,
So they're
no,
watching and protecting.
They're
the
separate.
more.
They're separate.
It's all separate?
It's all
Yes.
separate systems.
Ma'am?
I'm
For the
sorry.
record,
I'm
could
sorry.
Could you come up front?
Sure.
Give us your name, and we want to make sure we recognize you, and also the question that you have asked, and also, if you don't mind, Mr. Schuler, give the comments as well.
Okay,
And
my
the
name
floor
is
yours.
Linda Fungi from Louisiana. And I didn't know, you just said you have a comment.
Yeah, no, that's good, and it's my fault not getting you up there. Could you give the address?
113 Shelley Court.
Okay, you guys, Mr. Chauvin, that question.
So my question was, were these 3 systems that you have, I'll call them systems, are they connected to each other to where they're each protecting what's happening down the line? Or are they all separately independent
They're
from each other?
independent systems.
Okay, and each of them are doing something separate with your whole system? Because those kids are smart. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other board, public, let's vote. please. Unanimous.
All right. Item J, to approve special education service provider contracts and contract renewals for IDEA and general fund as appropriate for ensuring FAPE for all students, including specialized equipment, programs, materials, and supplies as outlined in the student IEP. So moved.
Do we have a second? So Lafourche, any discussion? Board, public? All right, let's vote, please. Okay, all right, let's go on.
And last,
And last.
item K, to accept the position changes and additions and job descriptions for all new positions as presented by Ms. LaFawn Ortiz, Business Manager. So moved.
Do we have a second? Mr. Schuler, any discussion? Board, public, if not, let's vote, please. That's unanimous. All right, let's go on to number 6, approval of academic committee recommendations as per meeting held Wednesday, May 18, 2022. Mr. and is not here.
Item A, to amend the contract with Body Community Academy, BCA, to include the sport of basketball. So moved.
Second, Dr. Gill. Any discussion? Any public comment? I just vote please. Seven, new business. Letter A, to consider selecting the Daily Comment as the official journal for the Lafourche Parish School Board for the period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. So moved. Peter, any comments? Board? Other? Not, let's vote please. All right, letter B, to consider approving the revised job descriptions for the position of curriculum specialist and career technical coordination. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Okay, Dr. Gill, any discussion on this side? Let's vote, please. Sorry, public comment on this side? Thank you. Now let's vote. C, consider approving the annual renewal of Tyler Technology for the maintenance of Munis software, the district's financial and human resources software system at a cost of $93,623 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Do we have a motion by members of the board? Dr. Gill, second, Dr. Shuett. Mr. Shuett. He hasn't got there yet. Okay, any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Now let's vote, please. Okay, that's unanimous. Letter D. To receive report from Evan Plaisance, Land and Facility Manager on bids received for Hurricane Ida asbestos abatement and the Rose Cutoff Middle School and take appropriate action. Do we have a motion to that effect? Mr. Archer, second. Ms. Babbitt, discussion. Mr.
Good evening.
Plaisance.
On May 20th, 2022, we opened bids for the abatement work on LCO Middle School. We had 6 bidders that presented bids. And so at this point in time, we would like to recommend the low bid in the amount of $95,400 from LLJ Environmental Construction LLC for the Hurricane Ida asbestos abatement project at LCO Middle School.
Any other discussion by the members of the board? By the public? Let's vote, please. E, receive a report from Mr. Evans Plaisance, Land and Facility Manager on bids received for canopy and HVAC area renovation and Gold Meadow Lower Elementary School and take appropriate action. Do we have a motion? Bourgeois, second. Ms. Babbitt. Mr. Plaisance, the floor is
Okay,
yours.
on May 23, 2022, we opened bids for the air conditioning and canopy replacement work at Gold Meadow Lower Elementary. We had 3 prospective bidders, and Thompson Construction was the low bidder. So at this point in time, we'd like to recommend the low bid in the amount of $2,137,500 from Thompson Construction for the canopy and HVAC renovation work at Gold Meadow Lower Elementary School.
Any other discussion by board? Public? Let's vote, please. All right, unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Plaisance.
Thank you.
Letter F, we receive a report on bids received by the Child Nutrition Department for A, bread, Class 1, B, milk and milk products, Class 2, C, food products, Class 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9, and janitorial and paper products, Class 11, to be used for the 2022-2023 school year and take appropriate action. Do we have a motion? Dr. Giat, second, Ms. Babin, Ms. Fletcher.
Good evening, Superintendent Martin and President Benoit, members of the board. This is our standard recommendation. The bids were opened up earlier in the year, and you should have received a report with all of the bid tallies. Just to kind of a side note, we're looking at about a 20% increase in food cost status. So the recommendation is for all the individual items that were awarded on the line item bids.
Any other discussion by any board members? Public?
I have a question.
Not, let's vote, please.
Right, right.
Public comment?
Yeah, I have a question.
You'll have to-
It's not gonna come up. It's more for everybody else that doesn't know what child.
You'll have to give your name.
Jamie
You
Markle,
have- You have to give your address.
116 Sealess Lane.
Yeah.
Good.
You know the rules, and we'll read them
Yes,
again for you, so you understand. The public comments are limited to 5 minutes per individual for board meetings and 10 minutes per individual for committee meetings. Comment cards must be submitted to the official recorder prior to any action being taken on the agenda or before the next item. Agenda item is introduced for non-action items.
Some people in the public may not know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, that we already eat as a school district, because I'm a parent and stakeholder, a part of that budget. So even though there might be a cost of lunch, it's not what y'all are paying. Y'all are paying more. And with that 20% increase, that's why I thought maybe y'all could explain that better than me, so the community knows that you guys are taking a hit, so to speak, for our kids to be fed. So I just wanted, maybe y'all could better explain it. I know how to explain it, but I know she's the professional.
If you could phrase your question.
So I guess basically, like y'all have explained to me, is that, let's say lunch costs overall, when you guys go purchase it, $4. But for a regular paying student, you only charge $3. So you're already taking that dollar loss, and now we have a 20% increase. I just think the public should know what y'all do over there.
I appreciate the question, thank you. Y'all don't want to get me started, I know I could give a doctoral thesis on the subject. But that being said, what she's referring to is the Child Nutrition Program is a federally subsidized program through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And specifically what that means is every year we have an agreement that's signed. Myself as the Child Nutrition Director, Mr. Martin as the Superintendent signs an agreement with USDA that we're going to follow all guidelines, rules, regulations, policies, procedures, everything involved with it. We have to determine what's called an ad cost. Some of you might be familiar with the ad cost price. That is what we charge for an adult who goes to eat a meal. So if our ad cost is $4, and when we go back to a regular system where our children would be free, reduced, and paid, the federal government does not fund the child nutrition program. It subsidizes us a cost. So for example, if a child is categorized as free, we get back around $3.80 on that particular meal. If the child is reduced, we collect 40 cents from the child for the lunch. That's the maximum we can charge the child. And then we get the $3.40 to recoup like the $3.80. On a child that's a paid status, we get right around 40 cents. That's the going rate right now, which is a little different right now, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So we then, of course, in a high school situation, we charge a child $2.10. So our total collection is approximately $2.50 on a meal that costs approximately $4 to produce. We operate at a profit loss. We operate as a nonprofit. We are then also subsidized by the local school district by a certain amount of money that's allowed to offset our costs so that we can keep the costs low to a child that's a paid student. So a lot of times when a faculty member or a visitor says, hey, how come I'm paying more for my meal? Well, in actuality, you're not paying more for your meal. You're paying what it costs us to produce the meal without making a profit. We charge a lower cost to the student that's paying for the meal. Does that explain it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Bud. Any other comments on?
Can you repeat that?
You know what, Randy? Yeah.
Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the board? Okay, if not, let's please vote.
The 20% increase is what we're seeing.
Wait, hold on. We're ready to vote now. Are there still some comments?
No.
Okay. All right, let's vote. All right, letter H. We received a report from Ms. Lauren Fletcher, Director of Child Nutrition, regarding the community. Letter G, to receive a report on bids received by the Child Nutrition Department for the cleaning of grease traps in the cafeterias for the 2022-23 school year, and take appropriate action. Do you have a motion?
Yeah, just
Two S, second.
we just had one bidder for grease trap cleaning.
Wait, go ahead. Good discussion. That's,
No, it's good.
that's good. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, let's vote on that. It's unanimous. Letter H, to receive a report from Ms. Lauren Fletcher, Director of Child Nutrition, regarding community eligibility program and take appropriate action. We have a motion. Bourgeois, second. Dr. Guillot. We do have two blue cards. What I'd like, if the board will allow Mrs. Fletcher to explain this particular item, and then we'll address the two blue cards. That's what we'll do.
And forgive me for a couple of minutes, I'll just take to read this. The Community Eligibility Program, we refer to as CEP, is a program by which qualifying schools are allowed to feed all students without charge to the student, regardless of the economic meal status, while receiving the free rate of reimbursement from the Federal Child Nutrition Program without the requirement of the completion of a meal application, what we refer to as a free lunch form. Selection of these schools is based on the percentage of students who are directly certified or categorically eligible for free meals. What that means is, in a normal school year, for a child to receive a free status, there's multiple ways that they can attain that status. One, they can fill out a meal application form, but that is not considered categorically eligible. The categorically eligible students are students who receive SNAP, okay, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or what we used to refer to as a food stamp program, or a homeless or migrant. They're on what's called the direct certification file. So selection of these schools is based on the percentage of students who are directly certified, categorically eligible for free meals. This number is multiplied by a factor ranging from 1.3 to 1.6. Currently, the multiplying factor is 1.6. Just to give you a little history. Last year, our district identified student percentage, we're required to determine the identified student percentage every year around this time. Last year, we were at 44.43% for the entire district. This current year, due to the increase in the Disaster Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, unfortunately, as a result of Hurricane Ida, we have about a 15% increase in students who are on that DC file based on the fact that they're receiving DSNAP. This puts our percentage this year at 59.75. What happens is you multiply that by that factor. So in essence, what it does is it gives you a 20% bump in how many students will fall within that category. The Lafourche Parish School District, we piloted this program in 2018-2019. We had 7 elementary schools that we could feed all students at 100% rate, costing the school district $0. What that means is all the students in those 7 schools ate free, regardless of their economic status. They didn't have to fill out a lunch form, they didn't have to do anything. We were able to claim them at a free rate. We had 7 schools back in 2018-2019 school year. Last year, we would have had 14 schools. The last 2 years, as a result of the COVID situation, we were able to feed all students free based on a national grant program that's going away this school year. So now we're going back to normal procedures, which means we will have children eligible for free, reduced, or paid. But because of Hurricane Ida and the increase in our students that are receiving DSNAP, we have enough when clustered together that all of our elementary, all of our middle schools would qualify at the 100% rate, so it doesn't cost the school district anything. That's fortunate, unfortunate, right? I think we all would be happy if everything was back to normal, we hadn't had a Hurricane Ida. When you do this, and we have to collect the data every year this time of year. We do this every single year. When we adopt it, we're adopting it for 1 year, but we can use our statistics for 3 additional years beyond that. So potentially, God willing, we don't have any other disasters, things kind of get back to normal. Regardless of that, you're looking at a potential 4-year commitment that we could allow all of our students in our elementary and middle schools to receive free breakfast, free lunch, without having to do applications and so forth. Unfortunately, the 3 high schools and BCA don't fall within that category. If we clustered everything in together, the closest we can get to 100 is around 95%. And you might think, oh, that sounds great. Not exactly. If you're not at 100%, it means every other penny comes out of our own pocket, out of our own budget, for all meals that are offered to the students. So that means we pick up the tab for 5% of our kids. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
So the recommendation on the floor for this school year, and I come back before you every year because we have to look at these statistics every year and come before you. I might come before you next year and say, okay, we still want to go with that because now our percentages are actually lower, which in a real world, I would hope they are lower because we wouldn't have so many people on disaster snaps. Without reading to you, I can explain it. Any other questions?
All right, any questions from the board before we have some comments from the public? Any questions from the board? All right, we do have 3 comment cards, and we'll start with Mrs. Vicky Lafourche. And excuse me if I mispronounced your name. I think close.
All right, thank y'all so much.
All right, could you please state your name and your address, please, and any comments you'd like to make on this subject?
Yes, sir. Vicky Lafourche, live in Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm representing We the People tonight. I'm going to just read you real quick, just so you know.
And let me make sure for the record, that we have this on file. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per individual for board meetings and 10 minutes per individual for committee meetings. Comment cards must be submitted to the official recorder prior to any action being taken on the agenda before the next agenda item is introduced for non-action actions. Floor is yours. Any comments you'd like to make?
So I just want to let you know, before I make my comments, that We the People, the vision of We the People is we stand united to preserve the God-given rights secured in our Constitution and protected in the Bill of Rights for future generations. Our mission is to instill in our community the spirit of the Constitution by providing access to resources and information, empowering citizens to take action, and holding elected officials accountable. All right. So the reason, first of all, you are amazing. Like, you're so smart and amazing. Ms. Fletcher, is it?
Yes.
I'd love to hire you for something in my personal finances. But But I'm here to speak to this body and in doing so to the public regarding what some of you are probably aware of, but maybe some of you are not. And it is a press release basically that's been put out by the Biden administration. And it's diabolical, it's evil, it's perverse.
No, that's
Point of order.
yes. Well, what you need to do, you have to pertain to this particular agenda item. Okay?
Well, it is regarding federal funds for food for the children,
Okay.
is what it's about.
Okay.
So my concern is that that might be in jeopardy, that we're going to be between a rock and a hard place to maintain what she's working so hard to make happen here. And unfortunately, I have to refer to where this is coming from. But basically, what it is saying is that in order, the federal government plans to require schools to allow boys in the girls' bathrooms if they wish to continue receiving federal lunch money. And it is something that is, if you go back, and we've done a lot of research, I have 3 articles for you guys, and I know you're super busy, so I even highlighted the articles to make it a little bit easier for you to scan through. You can get those after, so you can pay attention.
You do have.
Yeah, no problem at all. But, you know, I'm sorry that we're facing this. I'm sorry that you guys are having to face this. I've heard from some superintendents, they've got a plan, talk to the Attorney General, talk to our sheriff, talk to our parish president, bring it for the community, because the answer would be absolutely not. We will not force our girls to allow boys into their bathrooms in order to get federal money. And we have to feed our kids. We're not going to not feed our kids. I've heard others say, no big deal, you know, that's not going to happen here. It's not happening now. It's not going to happen in the future. But if you go back and you look at look at this research, the only thing I did not print out was an executive order by Joe Biden. It is piece by piece. They're planning to implement this in our schools. And he specifically says federally funded government schools. That is who is going. So if this does come to that, we're going to have to make a choice. We as a community, as moms and dads, as school board members, administration, we're going to have to make a choice and be prepared to when we say no, you're not going to be allowed to force our girls if they need to go to the bathroom at school and they are just wanting to look in the mirror and fix themselves up. Forgive me, but I'm just going to be candid. If they started their period and they need to clean themselves up, if they've just been rejected by a boyfriend or a friend and they need to cry a bit, that they have that safe place in the girls' restroom that is not being invaded by a boy, a teenage boy or a young boy. You know, and I know that you guys agree with that. I know we're all on the same page, 100%. What we want to do is get ahead of it and make sure that everyone understands that this has been put out by our government. There's even an article here by the USDA. Now the USDA is getting into discrimination regarding food. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you know, we're not going to sacrifice our children, right? You know, and whatever they try to do, we're going to say 10 seconds?
5 seconds.
Not our kids. We're not going to sacrifice our children. And I know you agree with me.
Yes, ma'am, we do. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
this information. You handed out a handout.
May I leave this here or?
Sure, leave that there. We appreciate that. All right, another comment card from Shanna and, excuse me, Mr.
It's a-
Uritage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Uritage, same thing, give us your name, address, and we'll read this card so you'll understand the exact parameters of your talk.
Yes, sir. I'm Shanna Uritage, 466 Crossing North Street in Tiverton.
Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per individual for board meetings and 10 minutes per individual for committee meetings. Comment cards must be submitted to the official recorder prior to any action being taken on the agenda or before the next agenda item is introduced for non-action actions. Thank you for the card. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I want to talk about the same thing, but be a little more specific about how this could actually happen, because, yes. So Ms. Fletcher was talking about the USDA and how the subsidies we get from the federal government for the community eligibility program. And what has happened is the Biden's campaign, it's not against Biden, this is just to kind of lay out what's going on, but Biden's campaign stated on his first day in office, Biden will reinstate the Obama-Biden guidance revoked by the Trump-Pence administration, which will restore transgender students access to sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms in accordance with their gender identity. He will direct his Department of Education to vigorously enforce and investigate violations of transgender students' civil rights. The USDA on May 5th.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. The USDA on May 5th put out something that says that they're committed to administering all its programs with equity and fairness and serving those in need with highest dignity. A key step in advancing these principles is rooting out discrimination in any form, including discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So what she was speaking about, those are the exact words that came from the USDA. So just to be a little more clear on that. Then they have articles from a few different sources that say that exactly what they're planning on doing is tying the federal food program to this equity in gender restroom. So this is what I wanted to say is this. I have 2 children in the school system. I spoke with Mr. Martin today. He made me feel a lot better about not really feeling like this was going to go somewhere here with you guys. I wanted to say that if this does come, because stranger things have happened recently. So if this were to come to fruition where they are trying to tie this to it, I wanted to let you know that you've got a community of people to support you in pushing back on this. Because we don't want this in our schools. We don't want our little girls to go to the bathroom and be uncomfortable. You get it. But we want to support you. If you need something, we've got a lot of people behind us who will fight for our kids. And so I wanted to tell you that I wrote this, and it's so silly. No matter what, it's just silly. No matter what the next thing is on the woke agenda coming out of DC, you've got a group of us behind you to support you in saying, leave our kids alone, leave our schools alone, we can handle it here.
Thank you very much. Well done.
You're welcome. Thank you. And actually, thanks. I think she has what we have here is a little different maybe than what y'all have, and it is all highlighted, but that's what I was reading to you because that was so important.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Marlboro. Ms. Marlboro, for the record, sorry.
It's January, sometimes I'm the only one sitting over there.
You can give us your name, the address, and you'll hear the same comments, but it's good for everybody, so go ahead and do it.
116 Sealis Lane, Lafourche.
All right, public comments are limited to 5 minutes, or per individual for board member, 10 minutes per individual for committee meetings. Comment cards must be submitted to the official recorder prior to any action being taken on the agenda before the next agenda item is introduced. Ms. Marlboro,
Okay,
the floor is yours.
I think they kind of covered it all, but I just want to say, I don't think it's fair that this board or the superintendent of any school district be put in this position to have to choose to feed 59% of their students or choose to allow opposite sex into a bathroom. And I know what our budget's facing, so I'm the only one here sometimes listening to you guys talk about the budget and what's going on and, you know, the options that could come if we have to choose to feed or whatnot. But I just want you to know that I know I'm a pain fight with all of you to keep our kids safe. And that's what it comes down to for me. And I have, not just children, because if this comes to fruition, one would think that it would apply to staff as well. And if that is the case, I have a daughter that teaches in your school system as well as 2 children in your school system. So I'm just letting you know, I'm that mom, but I will help you fight this fight.
Very good, thank you, Ms. Marlboro, and thank you for the other comments. We always appreciate that. If I remember correctly, we did have a motion on the floor, did we?
Yes.
And we had a second, and the public has commented. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the board? All right, please vote. Thank you. Let's go to number 8, memorial resolutions. And we'll start with Mr. Timothy Walker, retired head janitor. Mr. Blazers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Timothy Walker was hired by the Lafourche Parish School District on December 8, 1982, as a janitor at Lafourche Upper Elementary School. He was later promoted to head janitor. Mr. Walker retired on December 7, 2007, having served the Lafourche Parish School District for a total of 25 years. Mr. President, I'd like to say he was my janitor when I was very young, as well as other people in here. He was a janitor in the day when they cut grass. They did it all. He fixed everything. And even after retirement, he continued to fix things. He fixed several of my rod and reels and several other people in Lafourche Parish. He had a really keen eye to fix broken things. Again, he was a janitor in a way that the maintenance department was very small in those days. So janitors did it all. He was one of them. He was a super nice guy. I grew up with him since I was a little kid. He was a grown man. And this is a real loss for our district and our community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jason. Any other comments on Mr. Walker? Mr. Jason Lyons, Ms. Batten.
Mr. Jason Lyons was hired by the Lafourche Parish School District on July 21st, 2004 as a teacher at Timber High School. Mr. Lyons retired on August 14, 2014, having served the Lafourche Parish School District for a total of 10 years.
Mr. Zachary Shanklin, Ms. Thomas.
Mr. Zachary Shanklin was hired by the Lafourche Parish School District on October 1st, 1970, as a designated apprentice in the maintenance department. He was promoted on July 1st, 1993 to a leaderman in the maintenance department. Mr. Shanklin retired on May 30th, 2000, having served the Lafourche Parish School District for a total of 30 years. Mr. Shanklin lived around the corner from me, and we call him Zach. That's what we call him, Zach. And he was a man of very few words, but if you needed him or his family to do anything, they were right there to do it. One of his sisters was actually going to get back into the school, a foster grandmother, Miss Burnishing. So they were
Okay.
Mr. President, I move that these resolutions be adopted by general consent and that a copy of these resolutions be recorded on a special page of our minute book.
Thank you. With no objections, let the record reflect that these resolutions were adopted by general consent and will be recorded on a special page from our Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item, item number 9. To receive an update from Superintendent Martin on the current operations within the district. Do I have a motion? Mr. Archie, second. Mr. Schwartz, Superintendent, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hurricane repair work is still the most pressing issue facing the Lafourche Parish School District. I'm going to work my way from the southernmost region to the north. Golden Meadow Middle School, the design is still underway. We expect the full design to be presented to land facility by the architect in the fall. South Lafourche High School, the work is beginning. The contractor for the roof should be mobilized very soon, and the gyms should be complete in the fall. But the timeline for those gyms to be complete is a really tight one. So the earliest that they're going to be complete is October. After speaking with both the outgoing and incoming principals, they have opted not to do a temporary gym floor and temporary bleachers. They believe that that would be a mistake to put the temporary gym floors and bleachers, because then you're married to that temporary floor and bleacher for the duration of the school year. So we're pressing very gently on the contractor to get the permanent work done as soon as possible. We're really hoping that's going to be October, which will allow for at least partial volleyball and complete basketball seasons. And we do have the Golden Meadow Middle School gym available for volleyball practice and basketball practice. But we're going to have to lean heavily on the Lafourche Parish government yet again to use the rec facility in Lafourche to balance all of these teams out. North LaRose is also still in the design phase. We are actually sending some work crews to that area to do some final remediation work on an area that we sealed off. If you may recall, there's two sections of the roof that peel back like bananas on North LaRose. And the section facing west had to have some more remediation work done, but that is also still in the design phase. By Blue Elementary, we have the building that was completely destroyed. The roof came off of it. We are attempting to have that brought down to a slab this summer so that the noise associated with the demolition of that building won't be too impactful for the kids as they come back in August. And then, of course, Bayou Bluff Elementary is still in design phase, and we are actively right now in the old Chackbait Elementary School, getting all of that work done so that we can be ready by August. It will be a very tight timeline, less with the building, more to do with getting the desks, the dry erase boards. Mr. Jamie Chauvin probably hasn't, had a good night's sleep since I told him you got this. Things could be working, phone lines, computers, everything, at a school that hasn't been used in a couple of years. And you just say, thumbs up, I got it. But we are really happy about getting the kids of Bayou Bluff back on one campus under one roof with the principal. More good news, the initial Fema payment. We were hoping to get the initial Fema payment, which would be in excess of $20 million this summer. That money is probably not going to get to us until Christmas. So Ms. Ortiz is very happy about this. Just like Mr. Chauvin, she's taken just one on the chin after another. So the $90 million that we secured in that first initial tranche from the hurricane loan is going to bridge the gap to that point. And we're very optimistic that by December we get those initial payments. And remember that the FEMA claim is in excess of $40 million in this initial punch, but you only get 80% of the 90% in that initial punch. So we'll get that hopefully in December. Good news, the Summer Academy is right around the corner. We have over 2,000 students signed up, which is a record number of students. I think that once parents got over the fact that my kid wanted to go to summer school, that we actually had an increased level of participation, and we're excited about it. So the buses are all set up, the schools are all set up, and you know what, if we don't get every classroom waxed, that's okay. We're gonna have a safe place for kids to come, continue their learning, and accelerate their learning forward. Instead of looking back at what they missed in the third grade, we're gonna front load the skills needed for fourth grade and have them ready to hit fourth grade running and accelerate their learning over the summer. So our teachers are excited about doing that, and we're excited about providing that service. In addition, next year we're gonna hit the ground running on two major initiatives. We have the AIM Literacy Initiative, which is the science of reading. That's going to be a heavy focus on our kindergarten through third grade teachers, where we embrace phonemic awareness and the teaching of literacy skills and try to accelerate our children's ability to read on grade level by the third grade. And then, of course, we'll be transitioning to the NEAT rubric, which is the instrument we're going to use to both evaluate teachers importantly, give them quality feedback based on what the principals are seeing in those classrooms. So we can work on specific skills to get teachers to become the absolute best teachers that they can possibly become. Teachers want to be held accountable and want to know what right looks like. And this instrument will be a very clear way of developing them and giving clear feedback. The previous instrument's feedback was frankly all over the place and inadequate representation of what quality teaching looks like. And lastly, we have upcoming graduations. As you know, we have on June the 3rd, the graduation of the Virtual Academy of Lafourche, and on June the 9th, South Lafourche High School, in the open air, humid, beautiful stadium at South Lafourche.
Y'all better make it down.
Good talk.
Pick y'all up.
Indeed. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. If there's any way we could have a copy of that sent to us.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
We would appreciate that. Any discussion from the board concerning this?
Yeah, in discussing with Ms. Sheremy at the recent event we just had, who's the principal of the South Lafourche High School, she says if it's raining on Thursday, they're gonna do it on Friday. If it's raining on Friday, said these kids will have graduation.
Yes. And believe me, the last two that we attended were beautifully done, and I expect the same at South Lafourche and at that. With that said, let's look at tentative dates of future meetings. Policy and Procedure Committee on Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Transportation Committee Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Land and Facility Management Committee Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Insurance Committee Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. Finance Committee Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. Academic Committee Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. Advisory Committee meeting Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. And the next regular board meeting will be Wednesday, July 6th, 2022. With that said, number 11 is executive session. Consider going into executive session pursuant to the provisions of Louisiana Revised Statute 42:17(7) for the following purposes: to consider the findings of the superintendent regarding a student expulsion, appeal pursuant to the Lafourche Parish School Board Policy JEE. I'll take a motion to that effect. Mr. Chuas, the second. Mr. Archer, discussion. With that said, all members of the public at this time, let's vote please first, and then I'll make the comment after that. Okay. Hand vote. Unanimous? Okay, thank you. With that said, unanimous vote. With that said, all members of the public and the Lafourche Parish School District staff, we exit the boardroom. Only the board, superintendent, designated staff, and guardians, the parents of the student will be allowed based on the executive session. Is there a motion to this board? Ms. Beck.
A motion that we uphold the recommendation of the superintendent.
Do we have a second? Dr. Gill. Is there any discussion? Can we have a hand vote, please? All those in favor of the motion, please. Thank you. For superintendent's recommendation for expulsion. Thank you. Is there any other topics to come to this board? None? Second? Ms. Babb? Thank you.